Juneteenth, also known as Jubilee Day, Black Freedom Day, Emancipation Day, is celebrated annually on June 19th. It originated in Galveston, Texas. Now, they did not choose, the government did not choose Galveston haphazardly. Galveston was Indian territory, as was Oklahoma and Kansas, which was also affected by slavery. Although President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation on January the 1st of 1863, a lot of slaves were not freed at that time. And those were slaves that were owned by Indians, Native Americans, as well as slaves in Native American territory. Now, Union General Gordon Granger was sent by the government to proclaim freedom in Galveston, Texas. A lot of people also don't know that Galveston, Texas had an active slave trade empire that was still going on at that time. So the U.S. government sent General Gordon Granger to Galveston, Texas to emancipate the slaves there. Those that were emancipated were also some of my family members. My family was actually owned by the Creek tribe. A man by the name of Joe Smith owned my family. There were 3 generations owned by Mr. Smith. My great-great-great-grandfather, Bob Bruner, and his wife, Rena Bruner. My great-great-grandfather, Jake Bruner, his wife, Sally Bruner. They had 3 children who were also emancipated on June 19th of 1865, and they were oldest daughter, Clander, who was 12, son Eddie, who was 2, and my great-grandmother, Mariah, who was 3 months old. During that time, the United States government removed the sovereignty, and so land allotments were given to the freedmen. My great-great-grandfather, Jacob, received an allotment of 160 acres of land. That land was located in Boley, Oklahoma. He got that land on February the 12th, 1900. And he moved there with his family, and he built a home on that land, and he farmed that land. Now, the exciting part about that is, if you don't know about Boley, Oklahoma was kind of a big deal. Much like Greenwood in Tulsa, it was called the most thriving, prosperous black town in the U.S., and my great-great-grandfather was a part of that settlement. It was established in 1903. Boley had a train station. Boley had a power plant. Boley had private and public schools. Boley had colleges. In fact, Booker T. Washington came to Boley. He wanted to see how it was established, what made it successful, and help model other black towns throughout the United States. He wrote a book about Boley. It was called Negroes, Negroes, a Town in the West. So it was a really big deal. Unfortunately, Oklahoma received statehood in 1907. And so with that came along laws that restricted ex-slaves, people of color. One of those laws was the grandfather clause. So beforehand, those black people and people of color and ex-slaves, they could vote. But once the grandfather clause was enacted in Boley, Oklahoma, they lost all voting rights. That town was governed by an all-black council, all-black government. After the grandfather clause, of course, that started the decline of Boley, Oklahoma. So a lot of things were lost. My great-grandmother, Mariah, who was emancipated at 3 months old, got married at 19 in March of 1913. She married a man named Vassie Gresham, who was from Mississippi, and they lived in Boley, Oklahoma until about 1935, where they moved to Oklahoma City with their 8 children. One of those daughters, 4 sons, one of those 4 daughters was my grandmother, Odessa Gresham. They left Boley in the 30s, and they moved to a house that they built on Miramar Avenue, which was between Northeast 23rd and Northeast 30th Street. They raised their children there. Odessa grew up, went to college, and got married to Lawrence Grant, who was my grandfather. They had 8 children, and those 8 children, out of those my mother was born, Patricia Lee. I started the research in 1996 we would actually go into the historical society. All I had was a roll number. And now my family was on both rolls, both of the Indian rolls. The first one, which was the Dunn roll. And on the Dunn roll, both freedmen and natives were included in that because they intermarried. On the second one, they had the blood degree for the Indians, as well as the second one, which is the freedman roll. And that is the one that my family was enrolled in. They got their enrollment emancipation, which was approved on May the 11th of 1899. Now understand, the Emancipation Proclamation was signed in 1863. So that's a long time to wait for something to take place, but that's how that happened. My great-grandmother was born as property. She was owned, and it's something extremely sobering, and I'll have to show you guys the documents when you see slave of. And you know that those were your people. And so you go through, what did they go through? How did they live? What did they have to endure? And it gives you a great sense of pride because they did survive it. And I'm saying they built something. They built a great legacy. And I'm a part of that legacy, so it gives me great pride. It's extremely emotional, of course, but it is a part of my history, and I relish in it. Every story, every document, you know, is these people becoming real and breathing. They actually existed, and I came from that stock. So it's sobering. It's recognizing the contributions of my people. It's not sweeping it under the rug. We recognize this happened, and now we're going to celebrate it. We're going to celebrate the people and the accomplishments and their contribution to making America great, to making it a powerful nation, to making it a strong nation, you know? America is a melting pot, and there are many stories, many ethnicities, many cultures, and so to see that mine is being represented and celebrated is beautiful. It's beautiful. Just like on the 4th, I mean, we grill meat, we get together, we do the electric slide, we have a good time. We partay, you know, and we tell the story because we do not want it to go ignored. We don't want to lose it. So we tell the story. We let them know this is why we celebrate this, the youngins. This is why we do this. This is where you came from. These are who your people are, in hopes to push them to do even greater things because you're accountable. You're accountable. If they can do these things under those circumstances, you have nothing to complain about. You can go there. You can get that. You can do it. The more we learn about one another, the more we have these discussions, the more we talk about the struggles and the successes, the more we can empathize and relate to each other. And it gets rid of a lot of prejudices. It gets rid of a lot of misunderstandings. And we see each other as just another human being trying to be wonderful, trying to live a good life, and trying to do good things. It humanizes us, very much so. And then we realize we're not that different at all. So we have to tell these stories. We have to know these things about one another.